What if everything you thought you knew about Mary Magdalene was wrong? For centuries, her name has been whispered with misunderstanding. Some called her a prostitute. Others reduced her to a side character in the story of Jesus. But when we go back to scripture, history, and early Christian writings, a very different and shocking truth begins to emerge. Mary Magdalene was not defined by scandal. She was defined by transformation, loyalty, courage, and divine calling. The Bible first introduces her in Luke 8:2, where it says Jesus cast 7 demons out of her. That's it. No mention of prostitution. No accusation of immorality. Just a woman who was deeply afflicted and completely delivered. And that changes everything. In first-century Jewish culture, women had little social power. Yet Mary Magdalene became one of the most devoted followers of Jesus. She traveled with him. She helped support his ministry. She stood among the faithful when others fled. When the disciples ran in fear, she remained. When the crowds disappeared, she stayed. When the cross stood tall on Golgotha, Mary Magdalene was there. Matthew 27, Mark 15, and John 19 all confirm it. She witnessed the crucifixion. Imagine the heartbreak. The one who freed her, restored her, gave her new life, now suffering before her eyes. But the most shocking truth: she was the first witness of the resurrection. John chapter 20 tells us that while it was still dark, Mary went to the tomb. Not Peter, not John, not any of the 12. Mary Magdalene. She found the stone rolled away. She wept outside the tomb, believing his body had been taken. And then, in one of the most powerful moments in all of Scripture, Jesus called her by name. Mary. And she recognized him. In that moment, she became the first person to see the risen Christ. The first to hear his voice after the resurrection. The first commissioned to tell the disciples. In fact, Jesus said to her, "Go to my brothers and tell them." She was sent as a messenger. Some early Christian writers even referred to her as the apostle to the apostles. Let that sink in. In a culture that often silenced women's voices, God chose Mary Magdalene to announce the greatest news in human history: He is risen. So where did the confusion begin? In 591 AD, Pope Gregory I delivered a sermon that mistakenly combined Mary Magdalene with the unnamed sinful woman in Luke 7 and Mary of Bethany. Over time, the image of Mary as a repentant prostitute became popular in Western tradition, despite no biblical evidence supporting it. Modern biblical scholarship has corrected this misunderstanding. There is no scriptural proof that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. Instead, Scripture presents her as faithful, courageous, and spiritually restored. But there's more. Some non-biblical writings, such as the Gospel of Mary, discovered centuries later, portray her as a prominent spiritual leader among early believers. While these texts are not considered scripture, they show that early Christian communities viewed her as significant and respected. And perhaps that's the deeper truth. Mary Magdalene represents the power of redemption. She reminds us that deliverance is real. That your past does not disqualify your future. That when Jesus calls your name, everything changes. She stood at the cross when hope seemed lost. She walked to the tomb while it was still dark. And she became the first voice of resurrection morning. The shocking truth about Mary Magdalene isn't scandal. It's strength. It's loyalty. It's divine purpose. History may have misunderstood her. Tradition may have misrepresented her. But Scripture reveals her clearly, a woman transformed by grace, chosen to carry the greatest message ever told. And maybe that's why her story still shakes the world today. Because if God could use Mary Magdalene, He can use you.